It starts the same way it always has. Caitlin Clark brings the ball up the floor. Eyes scanning. Defense already tightening. She drives into the paint, and bodies collapse instantly. Contact. Pressure. A shot gets swatted away. But this time something feels different. The ball kicks out. Reset. Clark relocates. Wide open. Three-point line.
Splash.
And just like that, the warning shot is fired. Because for the past 2 years, the entire WNBA has operated under one simple blueprint when it comes to Caitlin Clark. Make it physical. Make it uncomfortable. Make every possession feel like survival. Not to stop her completely, but to wear her down. To test her. To push her to the edge every single night. And for a while, it worked. Not enough to silence her, but enough to shape her game. Enough to force hesitation. Enough to make every drive, every pass, every shot feel like it came with consequences. But while the league was busy testing Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever were watching everything. Every hit, every shove, every moment where things crossed the line. And they didn't complain. They didn't protest. They responded. First, they brought an edge. Fire. A perimeter presence willing to meet physicality head-on. A player who doesn't back down, doesn't flinch, and absolutely doesn't forget. Then came the move that changes everything. Myisha Hines-Allen. And if you've been paying attention, you already know, this isn't just another signing. This is a statement. A loud one. A dangerous one. Because Hines-Allen isn't just a forward.
She's not just depth.
She's not just another name on the roster. She is impact. She is force. She is controlled chaos. A player built for contact. Built for collisions. Built for the kind of basketball most players try to avoid. She doesn't go around defenders, she goes through them. And suddenly, everything changes. If Sophie Cunningham locks down the perimeter, Hines-Allen owns the interior. No more easy drives. No more soft finishes. No more uncontested physicality. Every inch of the court?
Covered.
Every possession? Contested. Every action? Answered. And now the question heading into the next season isn't whether Indiana can handle the pressure. It's what happens when the rest of the league realizes the pressure has been returned. Because if you don't know Myisha Hines-Allen's story, you're about to understand why this move should have every team paying attention. This is not hype. This is not projection. This is a decade-long resume built on toughness, grit, and production. She didn't enter the league as a superstar. No spotlight. No guarantees. Drafted in the second round by the Washington Mystics, a place where nothing was handed to her. Every minute? Earned. Every role? Fought for. Every opportunity?
Taken.
And then came the breakthrough. A championship run. A real one. Not from the bench, not as a background piece, but as a contributor in one of the most physical postseason environments imaginable. The kind of basketball where every possession feels like a fight, where only the toughest survive. And she didn't just survive. She thrived. Then she exploded into one of the most versatile forwards in the league, scoring through contact like it didn't exist, stretching the floor with consistent shooting, rebounding like every possession mattered more than the last, facilitating offense, defending multiple positions. For years, she became the type of player every team needs, but few teams have. Reliable, physical, relentless, a foundation piece. And then came another proving ground, the Minnesota Lynx, a franchise built on defense, built on discipline, built on making opponents uncomfortable, a system where softness doesn't survive. And once again, she fit perfectly, because toughness isn't something she turns on.
It's who she is.
Then came her time with the Dallas Wings. And even their new system, new teammates, same result. Production, versatility, impact,
Points.
rebounds, assists, but more importantly, presence. The kind that changes how opponents play. The kind that raises a team's floor instantly.
And now,
She arrives in Indiana, not as an experiment, not as a backup plan, but as the exact solution to a very specific problem. Because the Fever had a weakness. And the entire league knew it. When Natasha Howard left, Indiana didn't just lose a player. They lost an anchor. A defensive presence that made teams hesitate before attacking the paint. Without her, something shifted. Opponents stopped thinking. They started attacking. Relentlessly. And in the biggest moments, it showed. Late-game possessions. Playoff intensity. Physical matchups where one player, Aaliyah Boston, was forced to carry the entire interior alone. That's not sustainable. That's not championship basketball. And the Fever knew it. So they didn't look for just any replacement. They looked for the right one. Someone who could absorb contact, deliver contact, defend size, stretch the floor, create plays, and most importantly, bring attitude. There weren't many options, but one name checked every box. Myisha Hines-Allen. And now comes the part that should make the entire league uncomfortable. Because this isn't just about filling a gap. This is about what it unlocks. Specifically, what it unlocks for Caitlin Clark. Imagine this. Clark brings the ball up. But this time, she's not looking over her shoulder. She's not bracing for contact. She's not anticipating the hit.
Because now,
she knows. If someone steps out of line, there's an answer. If someone gets physical, there's a response. If someone tries to send a message, it's getting sent right back. Sophie Cunningham on the perimeter. Hines-Allen in the paint. Together? That's not just support. That's a shield. A full court, no weakness, no tolerance system that changes everything about how defenses approach the game. Try to pressure Clark on the outside? You're getting met. Try to attack inside? You're getting hit. Try to escalate? You're dealing with both. Simultaneously. For 2 years, the league kept pushing because there was no real deterrent. No cost. No consequence. That equation? It's gone. Completely. And what happens next is the real story. Because when Caitlin Clark feels protected, she doesn't just play better. She plays free. And when she plays free, that's when things get dangerous. Not just for one team, but for the entire league. Because this was never just about toughness. This was about timing. About building something piece by piece. Quietly. Patiently. Until now. Now it's complete. Now it's visible. Now it's undeniable. The Indiana Fever didn't just make a move. They sent a message. And the rest of the WNBA? They're about to feel it. When Caitlin Clark knows she doesn't have to look over her shoulder anymore, everything changes. Not slightly. Not gradually. Completely. Because for 2 straight seasons in the WNBA, every drive into the paint came with a question. What's coming next? A bump? A shove? A hard foul disguised as physical play? That hesitation, even for a split second, matters at this level. And it showed. There were moments where Clark, instead of attacking the rim, pulled up from deep. Not because she couldn't get inside, but because the cost of getting there was always waiting. There were possessions where she gave the ball up early. Not because she couldn't create, but because she knew what would happen if she held it too long. That wasn't fear. That was survival.
But now,
that calculation is gone. Because when Clark steps on the court now, she knows something she's never truly known before at the professional level. She's protected. Not in theory. Not emotionally. Physically. If someone crosses the line, there's an answer. If someone escalates, there's a response. If someone tries to send a message, it's getting returned immediately. And when that weight disappears, Caitlin Clark doesn't just play. She unleashes. She drives harder. She doesn't slow down when she hits the paint. She accelerates through it. She hangs in the air longer, bending defenses in ways that don't even look possible, delivering passes that feel like they were imagined before they were executed. Angles that shouldn't exist suddenly do. Windows that look closed somehow open. Because now, she's not bracing for impact. She's attacking through it. And that's terrifying. Because even under constant pressure, under non-stop physical targeting, Clark still produced at an elite level.
Points.
Assists. Control. Now imagine those same numbers. With freedom. With confidence. With zero hesitation. That version of Caitlin Clark? That's not just dangerous. That's historic. And here's where everything connects. Because Myisha Hines-Allen doesn't just add toughness. She unlocks it. She doesn't just protect Clark. She frees Clark. She removes the final restriction from a player who is already bending the league to her will. And the rest of the WNBA? They're not ready for that version. But if you strip away the emotion, strip away the narrative, and look at this purely through a basketball lens, it gets even scarier. Because the fit? It's almost perfect. Start with spacing. Hines-Allen is a legitimate perimeter threat. That matters more than people realize. Because when Clark drives, and she will drive, defenses collapse. They have no choice. You can't leave her one-on-one in space. So help comes.
But now?
That help has consequences. Because leaving Hines-Allen open isn't safe. Sag off her for even a second, and you're giving up points. And suddenly the math breaks. Help too much? You get punished outside. Stay home? Clark gets a free lane. Pick your poison. And neither option looks good. Then comes playmaking. This is where things get subtle but deadly. Hines-Allen isn't just catching and finishing. She reads. She reacts. She processes the defense in real time. When Clark draws two defenders, and she will, Hines-Allen becomes the release valve. But not just to reset the offense. To attack it. She catches. She sees the rotation. She finds the open player. That split-second decision-making? That's the difference between a good possession and a broken defense. And now Indiana has both. A creator, who bends the defense, and a forward who punishes it. Then there's rebounding. This is where games are quietly won and lost. Second chances. Extra possessions. Momentum swings. Pair Hines-Allen with Aaliyah Boston, and suddenly the paint isn't just defended, it's controlled. Every missed shot becomes a battle. Every loose ball becomes a collision.
And Indiana?
They're no longer getting pushed around. They're pushing back. Defensively, it gets even more interesting. Because now the Indiana Fever have options. Real ones. They can go big. They can go small. They can switch. They can match size with size or speed with speed. And for the first time in a long time, they're not reacting to matchups. They're dictating them. That's a massive shift. Now zoom out. Look at the full picture. Clark running the offense like a mastermind. Kelsey Mitchell scoring in bursts that flip games instantly. Perimeter toughness. Interior strength.
Depth.
Versatility. Experience.
Youth.
Everything is starting to align. What used to be a weakness now looks like a strength. What used to be a question mark now looks intentional. This isn't random. This is constructed. And then there's the part nobody talks about enough, the strategy behind it. Because this isn't just about building a good team now. This is about building a sustainable contender. The front office didn't panic. They didn't overpay. They didn't chase headlines. They waited. They calculated. They targeted value instead of noise. Because they know what's coming. Future contracts. Massive deals. A financial landscape that's about to get tight. And instead of locking themselves into problems later, they're creating flexibility. Room to move. Room to adjust. Room to keep the core intact. That's not luck. That's planning. And here's the part that should make the rest of the league uneasy. They might not even be finished. There's still room. Still options. Still moves that could push this even further. But even if nothing else happens, this roster already tells a story. A clear one. A dangerous one. This isn't just a team anymore. It's a system. Everything connected. Everything intentional. Everything built around one idea. Protect the creator, and everything else becomes unstoppable. Clark sees the game before it happens. Boston finishes what shouldn't exist. The perimeter enforces. The interior punishes. And every possession becomes a problem no defense can fully solve. But none of this matters until it's tested. Because the real truth of the WNBA doesn't show up in regular season highlights. It shows up in pressure, in playoff intensity, in moments where every possession feels heavier than the last. And the question isn't whether Indiana is talented enough. They are. The question is something much more brutal. When the pressure comes back at them, when the physicality rises again, when the games slow down and every weakness gets hunted, who breaks first? Because now, for the first time, Indiana isn't just responding to pressure. They're built to return it. And when that moment arrives, when everything tightens, when everything matters, when there's nowhere left to hide, there's only one question left: who's really ready for what's coming? And this is where things stop being theoretical and start becoming real. Because it's easy to talk about toughness. It's easy to talk about depth. It's easy to talk about on-paper improvements. But none of that matters when the game slows down, when the crowd gets louder, when the whistles get tighter, when every possession feels like it could decide everything. That's where teams get exposed. And that's exactly where the Indiana Fever were exposed before. Not because they lacked talent, but because they lacked resistance. There were moments, big moments, where everything tightened, where the offense stalled, where the defense bent, where physical teams leaned into them possession after possession, and nobody pushed back hard enough to make it stop. And at the center of it all, Caitlin Clark, carrying the creation, absorbing the contact, managing the chaos, alone. That's over now. Because now, every action has weight behind it. Every screen hits harder. Every box out matters more. Every drive into the lane comes with a consequence waiting on the other end. And that changes psychology. Not just for Indiana. For everyone. Because basketball at this level isn't just skill. It's memory. Players remember who hit them. Players remember who didn't respond. Players remember which teams let things slide and which ones made you pay for it. And the Fever? They've flipped that identity. Now, when teams prepare for Indiana, the conversation changes. It's no longer just, how do we stop Clark? Now it becomes, how do we survive them? Because the perimeter is no longer soft. The paint is no longer open. And the physical edge that used to belong to other teams? It's been taken. And here's where it gets even more dangerous. Because once opponents start hesitating, even for a second, it's over. That half step of doubt, that moment where a defender second-guesses whether to step up, that split second where someone chooses not to send that extra bump, that's all Clark needs. She sees it instantly. She attacks it immediately. And she punishes it completely. Because hesitation against a player like Caitlin Clark isn't neutral. It's fatal. Now layer that with everything else around her. Scorers who can capitalize. Bigs who can finish. Players who don't just occupy space, but weaponize it. And suddenly, Indiana isn't just running offense. They're dictating it. And that's the difference between a good team and a team that controls games. But here's the part that most people still aren't ready to accept. This isn't just about one season. This is about a window. A window where everything lines up at once. Talent, timing, contracts,
Chemistry.
identity. And those windows? They don't stay open forever. The best organizations recognize them early. The smartest ones? They attack them aggressively. And that's exactly what Indiana is doing. Not waiting. Not hesitating. Not hoping. Building. Every move calculated. Every addition intentional. Every gap filled with purpose. And now, the roster doesn't just make sense. It makes a statement. But statements don't win championships. Execution does. Because eventually they're going to run into teams that don't care about the narrative. Teams that don't flinch. Teams that have been here before. The Las Vegas Aces don't get intimidated. The New York Liberty don't lose composure. The Dallas Wings don't slow down. Those teams don't react to pressure. They absorb it. They redirect it. They thrive in it. So when Indiana meets them, when the pace tightens, when the game turns into a series of moments instead of a flow, that's when the real test begins. Because now it's not about potential. It's not about improvements. It's not about what this team could be. It's about what they are. When everything is on the line. And that's where the identity they've built gets pushed to its limit. Are they just tougher? Or are they unbreakable? Can they handle contact? Or can they dominate through it? Can they respond to pressure? Or can they control it? Because there's a difference. A big one. And somewhere in a playoff game that hasn't happened yet, in a fourth quarter that hasn't started yet, in a possession that will define everything, that answer is waiting. The league pushed Caitlin Clark for 2 years. Tested her. Targeted her. Tried to wear her down.
Now?
She's not alone anymore. Now there's structure behind her. Now there's force around her. Now there's intention in every piece of the system. And when all of that comes together, when skill meets protection, when confidence meets aggression, when talent meets timing, you don't just get a better team. You get a problem. A real one. And the rest of the WNBA? They're about to find out exactly how big that problem is.